We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south-of-the-border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside. Or maybe you're in the mood for seafood. Big Sur Oyster Bar has fresh seafood prepared right before your eyes. Savor freshly shucked oysters, crab legs jambalaya, shrimp and lobster. Beers on tap and a selection of fine wines are perfect to pair with your seafood favorite. Whether lunch or dinner, you'll love this fun atmosphere, located just off the casino floor. Ready to shake things up? Step back in time and treat yourself to one of the oldest restaurant chains in the country. Steak and Shake, famous for original mouth-watering steak burgers and hand-dipped milkshakes in a variety of flavors. For some old-fashioned fun, try Steak and Shake.
Welcome in. It's Sports by the Book, Football Frenzy on a Thursday. We begin the second half of the NFL season with a pretty darn good matchup tonight. I'm Jeff Parles. He's Ryan McCormick. We're happy to be with you as always. Ryan, we got an overtime game on Monday, which was a little bit surprising. We needed the overtime to get our over home, which was good. But, you know, it was a surprisingly good game on Monday, and, boy, it would be very disappointing if this game tonight between the two teams that at least I had projected going into the season as the top two teams in the AFC North, with their second battle of the season, Cincinnati travels to Baltimore, and that first matchup they had was as good of a game as we've seen across the NFL this year. Yeah,
and it's always nice when you get a divisional matchup in prime time, and one to this caliber is going to be a fun one. So getting Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow in prime time, Jamar Chase, Zay Flowers, Deontay Johnson on a new team, should be a fun one tonight.
Totally forgot about Deontay Johnson, but yes, traded from Carolina for nothing, basically, to Baltimore. Well, again, if it wasn't for Jerry Jones not knowing how things are working anymore.
My God.
It would have been a fourth for Jonathan Mingo, who was the sixth best wide receiver traded at the deadline, and I might be being nice with that. Other than that, it was honestly, a nice market if you needed a receiver because it didn't take a lot to get a lot of solid guys in other spots. Mike Williams went to Pittsburgh, of course, this week. Deontay Johnson, as you mentioned, to Baltimore. But here we are tonight with, you know what, Ryan? This is, I really hope that people don't think I'm just trying to grease the wheels here tonight. But this is a really good game here where you look at the end. We're on the back half of the season now. We can start looking at the playoff chase. Yeah. That is a legitimate thing to do. And you enter tonight's game with the Ravens 6-point favorites, by the way, and a total now up to 53. We never got back to 52, so hopefully you bet 52.5 over, like I said this morning on the AM version of this show. But you look at the AFC North standings. The Pittsburgh Steelers, who, by the way, have a very interesting game coming up this weekend against the stone-cold shock of the NFL and the Washington Commanders coming up. The Steelers are in first place right now because they played one less game than Baltimore, so they have one less loss. They both have 6 wins. They'll, of course, they'll all get the 17 games when it's all said and done. Baltimore's sitting at 6-3, and then you have the Bengals, who, look, they're 4-5. You look at the way this season has gone for Cincinnati, it has been more times than not their defense failing.
Right.
That has cost them games, except for, realistically speaking, week 1, where everything was not good enough in that ridiculous loss to the New England Patriots to begin the season. The rest of the year, you look at their other losses, They lose to Kansas City on a controversial PI at the end of the game that sets up a game-winning field goal.
Yeah.
The Commander game where going into the game, if you told me Joe Burrow and company scored 33 points on Washington, we're winning that game 99 out of 100 times now.
Yeah.
Now that we know what we know about Washington, it's
Exactly.
a little bit different, but we didn't know in week 3.
Yep.
We just thought, a rookie quarterback just won his first game. This is going to regress to the mean. That was in the midst of Washington not punting for 2.5 straight games.
Yes.
And then we get to the matchup, which was their fourth loss that sent them to 1-4, Brian.
Yep.
And this is what I want to go through with you here. And I know you have numbers from that game and all the numbers that are pertinent here tonight. Cincinnati lost that game to Baltimore 41-38 in a game where Cincinnati had the ball in overtime, needing a field goal to win the game, and ran the ball into the line 3 straight times, settled for a 53-yard field goal for McPherson, which was missed because of a bad snap and it was a bad hold more so than a bad snap. Derrick Henry didn't rumble for 35 yards. Justin Tucker kicked the short field goal, and Baltimore got out of there with a win. And Ryan, the main reason I like this over, and I know you have the numbers on this. We all talk about how bad Cincinnati's defense has been.
Yeah.
Baltimore's defense has really not been good. They've just happened to be getting away with it because their offense is just playing at an absurdly good level so far this year.
Yeah, and the Ravens hope that the trade for Marshawn Lattimore is going to improve their pass defense, which really wasn't main issue. Their main issue has been the defensive line, their ability to pass rush and make stops at the line of scrimmage. That's just something that the Ravens haven't been able to do this season. But taking a look at the Bengals, you're talking about their 4 losses in the first 5 weeks of the year. All 4 of the losses were by 1 score. So they were staying in games, were fighting to win games, and just couldn't close it out at the end. And really, their 4 losses, other than the Eagles' loss, have all been 1 scores. The Eagles' loss was something different. The Eagles figured out how to use Saquon Barkley, and that showed you what that offense potential is. But since getting T. Higgins back, the offense has kind of seemed to get back to form. Not having T this week could be detrimental to them in a must-win game in this division. You also take a look at their upcoming schedule. They got the Chargers next week, then their bye, and then you have the division-leading Steelers twice. You have the Cowboys, the Titans, the Browns, and the Broncos. So Cowboys, Titans, Browns there are games that if you're Cincinnati, you're marking down as a win. But those division games against the Steelers game, or the Chargers game next week, and then even that Broncos game in week 17 are going to be huge for this Bengals team if they really want to make a playoff push.
So you just mentioned it on the schedule. Boy, that Cowboy game looks a lot easier than it did at the beginning of the year. But this is before that bye week. I don't think you could draw up a more critical 3-game stretch of teams that you play. Just look at the playoff picture in the AFC. You mentioned it. Baltimore, a team you're chasing. The Chargers, a team you're chasing if you're Cincinnati.
Yep.
And then Pittsburgh, another team. You're 3 teams you're trying to chase down. Now, look, after that first Steeler game, that schedule is very manageable.
Yeah, then you kind of get a gift to get healthy back, maybe. But yeah.
I mean, look, Dallas, Tennessee, you're going to be favored in both of those games on the road. You're going to be favored in that Cleveland game week 16, and you're going to be favored in what may be for a playoff spot potentially in that week 17 game against Denver. Yeah. How crazy is that? But look at both the team schedules. Both of those teams going into that game with 8 wins or 7 wins, where either 9 or 10's enough in order to get to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be a battle for that 7 seed.
Morton employed at that game's for a potential playoff spot in the AFC at this point. Ryan, I just want to ask you real quick, defensively speaking, for the Bengals, because it's been a mess, and I think we've kind of been waiting for this sort of regression from this defense over the last few years, and it's a testament to Lou Lamoriello, who's held this defense together. Yeah. And they've looked at, again, made the Super Bowl. They were amazing in that postseason. The year after that, they were shut down that Buffalo offense in the second round. In the first round, they won the game on the ridiculous Hubbard 99-yard touchdown off the fumble by Tyler Huntley. Last year, you started to see the cracks, but they weren't given as much of a chance because Burrow went down and was out for a majority of the year, and when he was on the field, he wasn't himself.
Right.
This year, it's all come unglued, and this is not the right matchup to get when you're trying to become re-glued. Now, the good thing for Cincinnati's defense is they're about as healthy as they've been all season going into this game.
Yeah, I think the thing for me when it comes to the Bengals defense is being able to play complementary football. When your offense is able to do what they need to and keep your defense off the field, give them a breather to where they don't have to consistently stay on the field and make stop after stop after stop, you're not going to be able to make stop after stop after stop. So just complementary football. The Bengals offense wasn't running to what we were used to the past few years, the year that they got to the Super Bowl, the years that they were competing for the AFC Championship, and then Joe Burrow going down kind of sent them into this spiral of now figuring out what to do, and as well as the salary cap issues, having to pay T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, letting Tyler Boyd walk, letting Joe Mixon walk, which I think is another thing. You're getting into the case where you got this running back by committee with Chase Brown, Zach Moss, and now Khalil Herbert, who I think is a steal for a 7th-round pick.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, Zach Moss had a career week last week Chase Brown, career week last week, the first time in his career that he had over 15 carries. So the Bengals offense, you got to see look to form using their running back against the Raiders last week. And I think that's just football. You got to be able to run the ball. You got to be able to play complementary football, keep your players fresh, keep your defense fresh, keep players on and off the field when you want to be. Run the game to your script, and the Bengals haven't been able to do that this year.
On the Baltimore side of things, Baltimore's defense has gotten very fortunate for the most part this year that their offense is playing at just an absurdly high level. And that offense, of course, Lamar Jackson has won 2 MVPs. I think he's having clearly his best season as an NFL player this year. You have Derrick Henry, who has looked like Derrick Henry for the majority of this year. And you also have a boost of Zay Flowers, who we saw glimpses as a potential number 1 receiver a year ago, Ryan. He's totally blossomed into that. So you have right now, look, I'd argue, again, I on my Jared Goff tickets to get there in the MVP, but there's no denying Lamar Jackson halfway through the season is clearly the MVP of this league. You have the QB1 so far this year. You have RB1 this year in Derrick Henry. And Zay Flowers has been a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. Plus, you had an offensive line that has been much better than I thought they would be going into this year with all those changes.
Yeah.
And Mark Andrews looks like himself again. They're without Isaiah Likely tonight, so expect a big dose of Andrews in the tight end game. Ryan, again, I'm not sure if when the lights get the brightest, we'll figure out what this Baltimore team truly is. Right. But for a midseason primetime game at home, where they have, since that debacle in week 2, have been smoking good teams at home, there's a real path for them to smoke Cincinnati here after, again, barely scraping by with a win in overtime this first go.
I think it goes to the point of playing complementary football. You add Derrick Henry, one of the best running backs of the last decade plus, of the 21st century, to that offense with a 2-time MVP. That rushing offense is unstoppable. And then now you're getting to see Zay Flowers run under rainbow balls from Lamar Jackson, and they make a trade for Deontay Johnson, who made a career doing that in Pittsburgh. So this offense, not this week for Deontay Johnson, but once he gets a little more acclimated to that offense, it's going to be very fun. Those two, Zay Flowers and Deontay Johnson, taking the top off, and then the box needs to be filled for that quarterback and that running back duo. So it's going to be a big question of how defenses are going to stop those two. But yeah, talking about this matchup in general, this rivalry, the Ravens have won the last 3. They're 6-2 in Baltimore since 2016. And Zay Flowers, talking about him having a career year, he's had over 100 receiving yards in 4 of the last 5, and the only game that he didn't was the Monday night against the Bucs, in which he got hurt. So Zay Flowers healthy, this offense is throwing him the ball.
From a traditional sense, before we get into the props, I have nothing on the side in this game.
Okay.
If you made me bet it, I would actually take the 6. From the Bengals. No T. Higgins again tonight, which is a big deal, but they had, even without Higgins, I have no idea how this defense covers Jamar Chase. Because in the first matchup, both of them were there, and the two of them combined for nearly 300 yards between the two of them. Higgins had 9 for 83 and 2 touchdowns. Chase had 10 for $193 and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So Baltimore had no idea how to cover these guys. And I'll just say this: Burrow's been awesome this year, and it's getting he's not in the MVP discussion because of what Cincinnati's record is.
Yep.
If the Bengals were as good as I thought they were going to be going into the year, going into this game, I went back and looked at my preseason predictions. I had both of these teams at 7-2 going in there with 2 losses, 6-2, 7-2.
Yeah.
I had this basically like heavy duty, potentially number 1 seed in the AFC on the line for these 2 teams.
A game of the year.
Like that good of a game. May end up being that good of a game, but I'd lean to the 6. And like I said this morning, Ryan, I think the over, even at 53, which is the high water mark now for this week, I still think you're good. And that first game at 79 points, and quite frankly, that was actually less than it probably should have been if you looked at the numbers. That game should have been played in the 80s.
Yeah.
I know that's a ridiculous statement, but really should have. I expect this game to be played in the 60s. I expect Baltimore to get to 38, which if they get to 38, Cincinnati only has to get to 16. Right. Cincinnati's getting into the low 20s at least. I think this is a big-time over game, even at 53.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a field day for these offenses as well. I do like the over 53, but for a side, for me, I'd lean to taking the Ravens. I just think their team is so good, and they're going to be trying to compete for the Steelers for that top spot in the division and that 1 seed. They don't want to mess around and play with Cincinnati tonight. It was a 1-score game in the game before, 41-38. But I don't really see the Bengals offense being able to put up the same production without T. Higgins and losing Zach Moss. I think it's going to be kind of the same halt on Deontay Johnson, the same thing for Khalil Herbert and the Cincinnati Bengals running back room. I don't know what to do with Chase Brown. He did have a career week last week against the Raiders. Most carries he's ever had in a game, most yards he's ever had in a game. I don't know how to respond in a follow-up week after that. I don't know really how this Bengals offense is going to look without Zach Moss and T. Higgins. So it's just a big question on their side for me, but I am very confident in the Ravens side of the ball. I love Derrick Henry tonight. I have a couple different plays, a couple different same-game parlays as well. I like him to have at least 90 yards, or some I have him 80 yards, that kind of stuff, but at least 90 yards for Derrick Henry tonight. And then Zay Flowers also having a big game in this one. Really just the Ravens in general. I like the Ravens to cover the 6. I like the over. So home favorite and the over.
Frank Nicotero, that's what that's called in these parts.
He would never do it on the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, that is a factual statement there, Ryan. Real quick, you mentioned no Zach Moss. We're not going to see him again this year, more likely than not. Part of the reason they traded for Khalil Herbert, and they basically traded nothing.
Yeah, a 7th rounder.
For a guy who
fantastic.
I still think is a legitimate number 1 running back, at least potentially in this league. Last week, when they didn't have
Darren Sproles potential.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. I doubt they use him in the special teams like Sproles was, but no Higgins and no Moss last week. Chase Brown had 27 carries, which is by far a career high. Never went beyond 15 before last week, like you said. It was Mike Gesicki was the big beneficiary of T. Higgins not being in that game. 5 catches, 100 yards, 2 scores for Gesicki. I think they'll need Gesicki here tonight, and you can go to those Cincinnati Bengals skill position props that you have up there, Sean. Beautiful. I think Gesicki's the guy, again, you have to attack here if you're looking at Bengal props. You can go with Chase Brown receptions also. I think you'll see a lot of dump-offs. Last week he had 5 receptions and a receiving touchdown. I'd much rather have his receptions as opposed to his rushing and receiving yards, especially if it's your game flow where Cincinnati's trying to catch up. They might not run the ball a lot. Chase, look, if you want to take a Chase prop, the one I like the most is the longest reception.
Which Chase?
Very good. Jamar Chase, the wide receiver. Good catch. Good catch. Over 26.5 yards on the longest reception for Jamar, I think is good. That would be the way I'd look to play it. And then Gesicki, those numbers are high. I know he had a huge league last week, but those are big, big numbers. We'll get to his anytime touchdown in a little bit, but it is all either Jamar Chase over longest reception, anything under 28.5, I would go over that at this point. And then Chase Brown, I would look to receptions over 3.5. See if you can find maybe even take a plus price at a 4.5. You could look at that there, Ryan.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I just won't be playing anything on Chase Brown. I'm very weary, being the fact that they did just bring in Khalil Herbert. I don't expect there to be a lot for Khalil Herbert in the game plan, being that he just got to Cincinnati. Kind of the same thing with DeAndre Hopkins going to Kansas City. He gets 3 catches, and then the next week, big week. I don't think same thing for Deontay Johnson and Khalil Herbert in this one, which is also why I'm weary on Chase Brown. The catches, I think Khalil Herbert is more of the pass catching back, but we did see Chase Brown go over this last week. Again, over 15 catches for the first time in his career last week, over his receptions for the first time in his career last week, over 100 yards from scrimmage last week for the first time. Just nothing I am willing to take for Chase Brown. When it comes to Jamar Chase, massive week in game 1. Like Jeff said, 10 catches, 193 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Should be the same in the script for the Bengals every week. Just feeding Jamar Chase, getting that duo of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase to do what they did at LSU. And then, yes, to Jeff's point, Mike Gesicki was the beneficiary of T. Higgins not playing last week and Zach Moss being out. But we saw the Ravens on Monday night give up 2 touchdowns to Cade Otton, right? Mm-hmm. And so they are susceptible to the tight end. I don't mind it. His anytime touchdown, I believe, is in the $2 range, right?
Right now, we're looking at $1.75. You can do better at some other shops right now. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't mind that one. If we want to take a look on the Ravens side, look at their props.
Yep.
Derrick Henry, I love on his props tonight. He's 6-3 to the over on his rushing yards, 4-5 on his attempts. So I don't really like it there. 5-4 on his total yards. So including the receiving and everything, really only gets to the over on those with his running props because he's not much of a receiving back. So really only a play on his rushing yards. 9 for 9 on anytime touchdowns this season, 4 games with 2 touchdowns. So if you're tempted to play a Derrick Henry 2-touchdown night, I don't have a problem with that one. Zay Flowers has 9. Let me go back to Derrick Henry. Sorry. 9 touchdowns in 8 games on Thursday Night Football, 22 touchdowns in 22 primetime games for Derrick Henry. So kind of an automatic touchdown if you look at history. You want to take a look at Zay Flowers, 9+ targets in 5 of 9 this season, leading to overs on his receiving yards and his receptions in those 5 of 9. Really, those are the only games that he's gone over on his yardage. He's also 2-7 to his anytime touchdown. Just hasn't been able to get past the goal line. So I wouldn't be tempted on Zay Flowers' touchdown tonight, even though he did have a big game 1 in this first matchup and has had a phenomenal past 5 weeks, other than the week he got hurt versus Tampa. And then looking at Mark Andrews, 4-5 on his catches this year, 3-6 on the yardage. Lost his 3 straight over streak last week, so it went under last week, ending a 3-game over streak. Had 4 catches, 55 yards on 5 targets in game 1. So right there with the lines, not a big confident play for Mark Andrews for me in this one.
All these numbers seem about right, at least in my end.
Okay.
Maybe you take Derrick Henry to have a catch. I don't love laying that much of a number, but all it takes is one screenplay and you're there.
Yep.
So don't mind that. Flowers' longest reception feels low, by the way. I would have expected that to be in the Jamar Chase range. It's not. I think that's I know a lot of overs tonight, but I just think this is a monster offense game like it was. I don't think we get the correction like some people think, where the first game was so out of control offensively speaking that there's regression to the mean. I just don't see it in this one. Pull up the quarterback props real quick, Sean. Of course, 2 elite guys tonight, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. And I really want to bet both of these guys to throw an interception prop, but I just can't get there. Burrow has actually been a little bit less protective of the football than you would have expected with how good of a year he's had. Did throw 1 pick in the first matchup between these teams. Jackson did not throw an interception. That was 4-0 in that game for Jackson throwing the ball. But all these prices are good. The only one that I think is a little bit of a nice price is if you want to take Lamar plus 160 anytime, can't really get on you for that here tonight. And I will tell you, Burrow's been willing to run this year. Obviously, he had that 45-yard touchdown run against the Giants on Sunday night. Last week, he broke a big one again, not for a score. 6-1 is, again, I'd like to have a little bit more, but it's not horrible, especially in a game where Baltimore's defense is so honed in on shutting down Chase and the other wideouts here tonight, maybe you could sneak something inside the 10 for Burrow. But again, I normally with non-running quarterbacks, you start at plus 750 when you really start considering a bet, Ryan.
Right. No, I agree with you. 750 definitely makes it worth your while on guys that aren't so mobile or not known for rushing for touchdowns themselves. Joe Burrow, looking at his all the props, over on attempts, completions, yardage, touchdown, and the yes on interception in the first matchup this year, but is just 2-7 on the over, or 2-7 to the over, so 7-2 to the under on his passing yards this year. Obviously, the one of the two wins was in the previous matchup. 6-3 with at least 6 games with at least 2 touchdowns this season. So if you like that one, I have no problem with it. But is right at the middle, 5-4 on his attempts, 4-5 on completions, and 4-5 on his interceptions. On Thursday Night Football, Joe Burrow is 2-2. The Bengals are 2-2 straight up. Joe Burrow has 8 touchdown passes, has never thrown an interception on Thursday Night Football. So could be a first time for anything. And then looking at Lamar Jackson, 9-1 in his career against the Bengals, 6-4 against the spread. On Thursday Night Football, he is 3-3 straight up, 11 touchdowns and 1 interception. So these guys aren't throwing interceptions on Thursday Night Football. They both also have 1 fumble lost. So 3 combined turnovers for these 2 quarterbacks in their career on Thursday Night Football. In prime time, Lamar Jackson is 19-6 straight up, 44 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. So a 4-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. And last note, 8 rushing touchdowns. So in 25 primetime games, Lamar Jackson has 8 rushing touchdowns. Not exactly worth it for me to take the plus 160, but again, it is Lamar Jackson. He can do anything whenever he feels like it. So that those are my numbers for the props on that one.
Anytime touchdown market?
Not on those 2, but on a player in general, I do like a chance at, let's see.
Sean's got him right here for you.
Yeah. I was kind of it was Mark Andrews was really the only one I was kind of tempted on, but I didn't have a play on other than the heavy price of Derrick Henry. It was Mark Andrews or no real tempt.
Do I go back to the Bateman well again?
Yeah, I was thinking he would.
I mean, do I go back to it? How much is Deontay Johnson going to get utilized tonight?
Right.
Like, probably not much at all, if any, if he's utilized for Baltimore in this game. I will say this with Andrews, there's no Isaiah Likely tonight. He's out with a hamstring injury. If you can find a book where he's coming off at plus 2.25, I think that's a great bet on Andrews. If it doesn't get there, so be it. I really want to go down the board on someone ridiculous on Cincinnati's receiving core because of the injury to Higgins. But the problem is there's really no one that really gets you there. Like, you're really going to take Trenton Irwin at 7-1?
Yeah.
Not really. Probably need 10-1 in order to realistically justify that. Jermaine Burton was a healthy scratch last week. So I don't know. I don't think you can really justify going down the board with Cincinnati. Baltimore is the king of the weird guy scoring a touchdown.
Yep.
So, like, if you want to go Justice Hill, who, of course, had one on the Monday night game against the Bucs a few weeks ago, I don't have a problem with that. He's the guy they like throwing a ball to when they go throw the ball to a running back. So, down the board on Baltimore's end, Hill's the guy. And I know some books will have north of $5 on that. So, okay. I think that's at least a long shot you can at least get behind here tonight, Ryan.
Yeah. When it comes to receivers, at least on the Baltimore side, I kind of think Bateman, Deontay Johnson, Keaton Mitchell, and Nelson Aguilar are really the same kind of receiver for that Baltimore Ravens offense. So it's really just a matter of who gets the go route and who gets the ball 40 yards down the field from Lamar Jackson. And I'm actually kind of tempted on taking Nelson Aguilar.
No problem with that either. He scored last week.
Yeah, let me take a look at his snap count real quick.
Yeah, well, while you're getting that, Aguilar so far on the year, if you just look at it, only 12 catches, but he has received at least a target every game. So he hasn't been invisible. He's in the games he only had one solo target. He has caught that target, which is great for Aguilar knowing his history. But again, Baltimore is the one team that always seems to have every few weeks, like, who was that? What?
Yeah.
Like if Charlie Kolar tonight scores a touchdown, it'd be like, all right, well, it's the Ravens. They come up with some weird ones every once in a while. So,
I wouldn't be surprised if they take a page out of the Lions book and get an offensive lineman touchdown.
Unfortunately, we can't bet that, Ryan. Yeah. Even though that would be a lot of fun if you could have every offensive lineman listed at some absurd prices, Super Bowl style, if you wanted to.
So Nelson Aguilar played 33% of snaps last week. He's actually kind of lost snaps.
He probably will lose some more tonight with Johnson there. Yeah. But look, plus 550. We'll see how it all plays out. Real quick tonight, there's 2 college games. I just want to hit these real fast. As of this morning, I only had an idea on one of these games. That's the one that's in the rotation numbers earlier. That's FAU and ECU. By the way, they're both starting at 8 o'clock Eastern here tonight. Florida Atlantic is 7.5 in this one with a total of 58.5. East Carolina is the favorite. I would, if you somehow see a 7 by the time this game kicks, go ahead. No problem.
Lay it, yeah.
If not, in game, see what happens. ECU hasn't played only one game since they fired Mike Houston, their coach. They won it big against one of the worst teams in FBS and Temple.
Yeah, I don't have a real play on this one, but I do lean to ECU at home. ECU is 3-1 this year at home. Their only loss was to App State in Week 4, but they've kind of proven that they can win games at home in the other games this year. And then FAU is 0-4 in conference. So I've just taken what I think would be the better team at home. But again, laying more than a touchdown, I wouldn't advise. So like Jeff said, if you get the 7, chance for a push. If not, I'm staying off.
The other game has started to move a little bit. Appalachian State has now moved to 2 now in this game. They were 1 this morning, so it's been a nice steady stream on the Mountaineers. This also opened Coastal Carolina 1. Again, I mentioned this morning. These are 2 teams, historically speaking. You see this type of matchup, boy, we're probably playing for some sort of Sun Belt supremacy now that they're both in the Sun Belt. But neither of these teams are just trying to get to a bowl game at this point. Inconsistent quarterback play on both sides, inconsistent defense on both sides. I would stay off. Personally, I would just stay off of this game. If you wanted to watch in-game and see what you get out of Coastal with them being at home, that would be the way I'd look to play this year tonight, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say Coastal Carolina has been the better team this year, and they were to begin the year, but the last 5 games, they've allowed at least 34 points in each of their last 5 games. So they're not stopping anybody on defense. But with that being said, Appalachian State has only scored 34 plus in 2 of their 8 games this year. So their offense hasn't really been able to produce. And I think that's going to be what you kind of look at in this game. I don't have a play pre-flop, but that looking live is what I would do. If App State is able to move the ball on Coastal Carolina, you could get a good spot on the over. But at 61.5, it's a really big number and a lot of points that you need from 2 teams that aren't very good. So
yeah, I would at 62. There's some 62 in the market. I think you can wait for the highest number you can go under. I tend to agree with that, Ryan. All right, let's take a quick break. When we get back, NFL Power Rankings. A little bit of a different look at a team that I didn't think I was going to put in there at all this year has finally made it into the top 10. Not quite as stubborn as you with the Packers, but I'm a bit stubborn on this team. They make it in there here heading into the back end of the year. And our good friend Dwayne Colucci joins us in 10 minutes from now as well. And we'll check in with the chat when we get back as well, right here. Sports by the Book, Football Frenzy.
South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you've still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza. We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south of the border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside.
Rocking out on a Thursday afternoon. Happy to be with you as always. It's Football Frenzy, Sports by the Book style. I'm Jeff Parles. Ryan McCormick is here as well. Ryan, we had a question in the chat today.
Yeah. Shout out to our guys behind the desk. We did a poll for our listeners or our watchers today. And the poll was, which quarterback is more likely to throw 3 or more passing touchdowns tonight? You do get a plus price on either one if you decide to bet it. Plus 185 if you take Joe Burrow. Plus 260 if you take Lamar Jackson. 60% of voters said Lamar Jackson is most likely to throw for 3 touchdown passes tonight.
Price on Burrow's not as good as it should be, even though Burrow threw 5 against these Ravens back in early October. Lamar threw 4. I think both are going to get to 3 tonight. Again, I hope for my over, they both get to 3, right. But that's where we're at right now. All right, before we welcome our friend Dwayne Colucci in a few minutes, Ryan and I will unveil our power rankings. We'll also look at a few games this weekend and stand out to both of us. I'll start with mine, and, well, I apologize. Well, I don't apologize to Sean, actually, if the Steelers lose this week. Because 9 versus 10 in my rankings are going up against each other this week. Pittsburgh makes his debut in the rankings for me, and it took them not playing, Ryan, for me to put them in there, which is kind of funny in all honesty. Look, I think this is Mike Tomlin's second best coaching job ever. I think the only coaching job that was better was last year. Making the playoffs with that team, by the way, honorable mention of going 8-8 with Duck Hodges starting a good chunk of your games a few years ago as well. But look, this defense is good, and if Russell Wilson is going to play well, this team, again, I don't think they're capable of winning a Super Bowl, but they're more than capable of winning a playoff game.
Yeah,
more than capable of that, and that's kind of where you are ranging if you're in the top 10, especially on the back end of it. Pittsburgh's at 10, Washington's at 9. Jaden Daniels just continues to roll, man. Just continues to roll. He is running away with offensive rookie. Dan Quinn, to me, at the moment, has to be coach of the year. Kingsbury, if there was an assistant of the year, Kingsbury would win that as well.
Yes, sir.
Even though Brian Flores, we'll get to the Vikings in a little bit, might have an argument there too. But look, this team's 7-2, and it's not a fluky 7-2. So they're legit. You have to consider them a legitimate contender in the NFC. I don't know if they're good enough to go to Detroit and win a playoff game, or even go to San Francisco and win a playoff game. But real offense for sure. And that defense has improved over the last few weeks as well, even though they had a weird game last week against the Giants. Niners didn't play last week. They go to 8. Look, if they're healthy, they're as good as anyone. But they're not going to be fully healthy this year. We know that. And post losing the Super Bowl, always you get a little bit messy with that as well. Green Bay's at 7. Look, last week was a weird one with the Lions. You look at the box score, Green Bay dominated it. They were 6.5 yards per play. Detroit was at 4, but Green Bay made their mistakes.
Yep.
And that is the killer at this point for this Packer team. Jordan Love is a lot more Brett Favre in him than Aaron Rodgers at this point. Just there's too many reckless and bad decisions still from Jordan Love. It didn't cost him against the Rams, but it has cost him against Minnesota and has cost him against Detroit, which is the difference between potentially winning the division and playing all of your games on the road in the playoffs, which is probably what's going to happen for Green Bay, even though I have them as the 4th best team in the NFC right now. So they're at 7. Buffalo is at 6. I moved them up, kind of just moved them up because I felt like I had to move other teams down. They're good. They're clearly good. I just worried about them long-term still. I don't know if that defense is good enough to win 3 games in the playoffs like they'll have to. And even with getting Amari Cooper, he didn't play last week, so you can't really overreact to it. But they need Cooper healthy. If he's not healthy, they defeated the purpose of even getting him.
Right.
You don't have a real number 1. Philly's at 5. Boy, Sirianni is such a dope. He's such a dope. I mean, you look at that game last week. That game was a beatdown. And then Sirianni keeps going for 2 because they missed the first one and just chasing points the whole game. That horrible Jacksonville team had the ball with a chance to win it late until Trevor Lawrence made 5 of the worst throws you'll ever see in a game-winning drive. And Philadelphia got lucky. They won in spite of their head coach, or despite of their head, whatever phrase you want to use again. There's only so many times you can do that. But that talent, and we have to monitor Jalen Hurts' health this week, by the way, because that is something to monitor. He's late to practice the last 2 days. But boy, that team is talented, but their head coach is a dope and will end up costing them long term. Minnesota's 4. Defense is good. Question with them is what are we getting out of Sam Darnold? Because we're starting to see the cracks. Starting to make worse decisions. Second half was great against Indianapolis, but that first half was rough. Shutout in that half. Minnesota had more than enough to come back in that game. They're at 4. Baltimore's at 3. There's kind of an island at this point where 4 through probably 14 are pretty close. Then Baltimore's on their own island at 3 for all the reasons we've mentioned so far tonight. And then Kansas City and Detroit are kind of on their own island, even though I will say this with the Lions. Even though they've won comfortably the last 2 weeks, and one of those was a mega blowout against Tennessee, just kind of look at the yards per game stuff and the yards per play stuff. Both of those opponents have been over 6 yards per play the last few weeks, and they're winning because they're forcing turnovers, and they're efficient on offense, and they're not making mistakes. If that worm turns at all, there's a little bit for me to be a little worried about. Again, if you maybe pick today, midseason, Kansas City and Detroit are playing in New Orleans. But there are a few things that I'm not going to say they're pure warning signs, but there's a few things I don't love with the Lions team at the moment. They could very much shut me up if they go to Houston and beat up on the Texans like the market thinks they will this week, Ryan.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. I do think that the Detroit Lions do have some questions that they still need to answer on the defensive side of the ball. We know that Kenny White has said on Sports by the Book that turnovers are luck in football. You can't prepare for them to happen. You can't scheme for them to happen. They just happen because that's the way the game flows. So the Lions getting the pick 6 that they needed to beat the Packers or right before halftime in order to kind of carry momentum and finish the game in the second half in a sloppy one in Green Bay. I had the Lions as my number 1 team earlier this year for 1 week and put the Chiefs back after 1 week. And I'm not going to do the same thing this time around. The Detroit Lions were number 1 last week. They're going to stay the number 1 team in football for me this week, despite DeAndre Hopkins becoming a more important part to that Kansas City Chiefs offense, which is terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
But those are the top 2 teams in the NFL. And then Baltimore, I have at 3, just like you do. I have the Buffalo Bills at 4 because of what I think that offense can do. We did not see Amari Cooper last week, but we did see him the week before, and that offense looks fantastic with him in it. Yes, that defense does have a ton of question marks. And are you going to be able to stop Baltimore and Kansas City when it becomes playoff time? That is the biggest question that I have. Minnesota, I have at 5. It's San Francisco at 6. Once I see Christian McCaffrey is fully healthy, which it looks like we're going to get to see him in game action this week. If I see him in the offense fully healthy, they're number 4. They're right behind the Baltimore Ravens. They're above the Bills and above the Vikings. But for now, with Christian McCaffrey coming back, just announced as coming back, not even knowing if he's fully healthy or not, they are my number 6 team in football. Number 7, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. Saquon Barkley did something I've never seen in my life. Hurdling someone backwards is absolutely incredible. You can't say enough about it. I can watch that over and over and over again. The New York Giants made a complete mistake in not re-signing Saquon Barkley and having him retire a Giant and be in their Ring of Honor. He is going to do fantastic things if he stays with Jalen Hurts in this Eagles offense throughout the rest of his contract and possibly signs another one. But anyway, the Houston Texans I have at 8, just because they are a good roster. They do have a head coach in DeMeco Ryans. They are getting Nico Collins back. They did lose Stephon Diggs, and that's kind of why I have them here at 8. If they had Stephon Diggs, they would be above the Eagles. Also, the asterisk is with the Eagles at 7, for those of you that know what I'm talking about. Jeff, yeah. Okay, so then the Rams, I have at 9. I do think that they're a top team in football when they have all of their weapons healthy. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams, and Matthew Stafford, like I've made a point of. They are 8-2 when all 4 of those players are healthy. So that's a top record in football if you put it in a 17-game season. And then I have the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Washington Commanders at 10 and 11. So that matchup is going to be for the 10 spot here. But when you look at the Washington Commanders, they had 2 games this year. One against the New York Giants, they did not score a touchdown, and one against the Chicago Bears, in which they did not score a touchdown. They needed a Hail Mary as the final play of the game. And now you're getting the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, one of the best in football, coming off of a bye week. So that's going to be a huge test for Jaden Daniels and the rest of this Washington Commanders offense. Are they actually going to be able to put up points and add to Jaden Daniels' Rookie of the Year campaign and actually prove that he should be Rookie of the Year? Because I don't think he should be that, even though the way that they've played this year, I think it's still much more of a conversation, even though my Bears are failing Caleb Williams. So that is what I have in my top 10. Lions, Chiefs, Ravens are my top 3, just as Jeff.
So I'll just throw this out there. L.A. Rams, Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, we had the Niners. This is a very interesting NFC West all of a sudden. Cardinals have a very interesting game coming up this week against the Jets. The Rams could end Miami's season on Monday night. Yep. Some intriguing cross sections this week in the NFC West. Let's bring our good friend in. You see him up at the Rampart, Race and Sportsbook Director up there. Our good friend Dwayne Colucci with us right now. Is Dwayne frozen, guys? He's frozen.
He is.
All right. Well, Sean,
staring very intently.
Oh, there we go. We got him back. There he is.
Hey,
Dwayne, you got us? You froze on us there. Maybe? Okay, all right.
We're doing animatronics.
The animatronics, interesting here. I know Dwayne heard us earlier because he was reacting to some of the stuff we said. But Ryan, while we're sorting out Dwayne here, I do want to go into that Steelers-Commanders game because these teams are so evenly matched right now. You have them 10-11. I have them 9-10. So basically dead even in both of these things. 3 right now with Washington in this game, Ryan. And you know what? I know it's old school. I know this game didn't open 3. It opened 2.5. But this is just classic. Just slap the 3 on the home favorite. And I think let the market go from there. And I think that's right at this point.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's why I have the Steelers ranked above them. I do think that the Steelers football team is better. I think the Washington Commanders are a product of the coaching staff. Dan Quinn is a proven defensive coordinator and now a head coach for the Washington Commanders. Has done wonders in Dallas and his previous places. And then Cliff Kingsbury showing that he is an offensive genius and given a gift in the Heisman Trophy winner in Jaden Daniels. So for this one, I tend to lean to the Steelers being able to go on the road and beat this one off of a bye week. But I need to get closer to game time to actually have a play on that one.
Well, we have him now.
We're good?
We have him now. Our good friend Dwayne Colucci with us right now up at the Rampart. Dwayne, we apologize for taking long to get to you. It's good to see you as always. First off, you're welcome for not betting Sierra Leone last week. So that's one. Again, just we knew it. As soon as I told them that Sierra Leone, I was not betting him last week in the Classic. You knew he was going to win, so congratulations.
But you really didn't bet him? You didn't put a dime on him?
No, I told you. Dwayne, I appreciate.
Did you bet the Jets at least?
Yes, that I did do.
Well, I told you guys that the defense was going to get straight there. How many winners could I give you that you're going to turn down?
Well,
I gave you the Jets, gave you Sierra Leone, told you Penn State was going to lose. What else do you want?
Hold on a second.
We'll take three more tonight.
I said this to the guys, Dwayne. I said this to Chris and Vinny on Friday. As soon as I found out that all three of you were on Sierra Leone, I did it out of the goodness of my heart to not bet it because I didn't want to mush you guys. I didn't want to do it. So that
maybe me, but Vinny and Chris got a ton of cash there. Come on, I'm the lone man on that total. So, you did me a favor, but you aren't doing those guys no favor. Forget about it.
Dwayne, let's go to tonight. Tonight, the Ravens are 6-point favorites at home against the Bengals. Totals 53. Dwayne, the first time these two teams met, Baltimore won an epic game in overtime. There were 79 combined points in that game. Cincinnati with a win tonight really gets themselves back in the playoff hunt. Baltimore with a win tonight keeps pace with Pittsburgh. What are we looking at here in this game?
Yeah, we're taking a lot of Baltimore money here at the Rampart and the South Point. But, I'll be honest with you, they've been stumbling around. This is a tough game. And like you said, it seems to mean a lot more to Cincinnati than it does to Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore, they lost to some suspect teams. They couldn't blow out the Cowboys, and we know how bad the Cowboys are. And, Joe Burrow seems to be getting more and more healthy. You're definitely, missing Higgins. It hurts, but Chase is such a monster. I could see a high-scoring affair again. I mean, we have this total sitting at 53. The ticket count is nearly 2-1, but not just there yet on Baltimore. But I think Cincinnati has an excellent chance. And like you said, the first matchup was a marquee matchup. And you know that Cincinnati definitely wants to get back into the playoff race, but you're also seeing that 6-point spread. And we know what Henry and Baltimore and that defense is capable of. Very tough to win in Baltimore as well. Lamar Jackson had a fabulous week last week. So, it's definitely a tough game to handicap. I would lay low on this game, but I definitely could understand the Baltimore backers just waiting for them to get over that hump and, become possibly the best team in the AFC, but they cannot do that with Kansas City playing at such high of a level. And, DeAndre Hopkins was just such a massive upgrade. I mean, like you were just discussing, guys, Amari Cooper did not suit up for Buffalo. And Buffalo thought they had an awesome acquisition. But do you think that maybe Hopkins was given a little sense that he'd rather join Kansas City and that he wasn't as injured as Tennessee might have felt? And, there's a lot of underlying suspect things that happen, outside of the locker room and with certain players. So, what an acquisition now Hopkins has become. I mean, in 1 week, 2 touchdowns, 85 plus yards, a first time that Mahomes has thrown for over 3 touchdowns since you got to go back to 2023. And now, that opens things up for Kelsey, who looked like a monster. I mean, outside of that fumble, he had over 100 yards. So, you guys have it right. The Chiefs are still the best team in the NFL until proven otherwise. But Baltimore is right there. And definitely Lamar Jackson wants to prove that point. And what better than on Thursday night stage, blowing out an arch rival Cincinnati Bengal team who has already been to a Super Bowl with Joe Burrow. So, there's a lot of football left in this regular season. This is a great game for a Thursday night. Exceptional handle. One of the best teams, one of the best games on the card this week.
Well, we just got some news that doesn't have to do with this game, and it's going to make our friend Ann very happy here. Kyle Shanahan in his press conference 5 minutes ago, Christian McCaffrey will make his season debut on Sunday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Dwayne, I'll just ask you this. if McCaffrey comes back, with McCaffrey coming back, we're going to assume he's not fully all the way there, so it'll take him some time to get back in it. But how does that change how you look at the NFC with now that McCaffrey is coming back for San Francisco, with especially all these issues that the Niners have had through the first half of the season?
Yeah, I haven't really discredited San Francisco. They've had a lot of injuries, like you said, whether it was Debo, having to suit up Mason. McCaffrey is the best player, or possibly all around in the NFL. So without this guy, you can't really get a true measuring stick. It takes a lot of pressure off of Brock Purdy. Keep that in mind if you have Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. Plus, if Debo starts to get a little healthy, Kittle, he's been unbelievable this year. He has outplayed every tight end in the NFL. And it definitely raises the 49ers up, especially like you said, Jeff, you had me in stitches. Sirianni is the worst coach in the NFL, and he has some of the best talent in the NFL. And it's just so funny to watch him when they start to really blow a team up. He starts to run around the sideline and fist pump, and that's when the team starts to pick it up, the opponent. And all of a sudden, before you know, Lawrence is back in the game, and Lawrence has done this several times. If you look at last year, they had so many opportunities, Jeff, to make the playoffs. And in that last game of the regular season, he had two of the worst drives I've ever seen by a quarterback. Just can't find his receivers, throwing passes that are so errant. It's unbelievable. But Jacksonville could have won that game despite being manhandled. And now you have Jalen Hurts a little banged up. So definitely the 49ers, they're the best team when everything is falling into place in the NFC. But Detroit is still there. Detroit is monstrous. They've played very well, even though it seemed like Green Bay outplayed them. Green Bay made a ton of mistakes, a ton of mistakes. And you have to try to overcome these mistakes and prevent them. And, I somewhat agree with Kenny White, but you can prepare for certain aspects of the game not to make those errant throws and those interceptions that will prevent turnovers. So, Green Bay still has a lot to learn. Detroit was able to take advantage. And, my theory is if you could take Amon St. Brown out of a game, you're going to beat Detroit. And I think that San Francisco, Philadelphia, a couple of teams out there, possibly Green Bay, Minnesota, can neutralize that. But they have to really play a great defensive scheme, not only to, stop him, but to beat the Detroit Lions, who right now look like the class of the NFC. But San Francisco is still there. Don't kid yourself. Brock Purdy, once he has McCaffrey back and you got Debo out there, it's going to be a really tough scenario. Granted, Ayuk is gone now. That's huge. Don't get me wrong. But San Francisco, definitely, they move up the ladder, but I was not discrediting them.
Dwayne, I do want to ask you about that game, Bucks 49ers. With Christian McCaffrey coming back, we saw this one open 6, go to 6.5, then down to 5.5, and now back to 6. We saw the Buccaneers on Monday night go to overtime against the Chiefs, had a chance to win that game. Are you seeing any kind of action for the Bucs supporting them, or is it really going to start to steamroll to the Niners side with Christian McCaffrey coming back?
Well, Ryan, when you've seen that back and forth, that's definitely the respect that people are buying back on Tampa Bay. Yep. Like you said, the game 6 to 6.5, back to 6. And I always preach, we do not move lines on air here. And we kind of knew that McCaffrey was going to play as well. So, Baker Mayfield, he's a gamer. That was the Chiefs last week, and he was still involved in the game without so many key weapons. This kid really knows how to play. They're well coached. So definitely Tampa does merit some respect. And I wish this team was fully healthy because they have a flashy offense and, they're gamers. They play with their heart. Yeah. And that's what you love to see on an NFL playing field, Ryan. You don't want to see these guys lollygagging, superstars pointing fingers at other superstars. That's when you're falling into the opponent basically beating you not only physically but mentally as well. And you see that time and time again with my Cowboys, whether it's CD pointing fingers, whether it's Zeke not showing up. Dak Prescott, he rarely points fingers, but he's always the guy that's getting pointed at. Yep. And, when you have that locker room, it's somewhat unsettling. The coaching staff really has to rectify that. And I think Tampa Bay has a fabulous coaching staff, and they definitely play as a singular unit. And that's what it is. It's a team game. It's not an individual game. And I love the way Baker Mayfield has stepped up since his days in Cleveland. He's a gamer, and, be interesting to see if they could get healthy as the season moves on. They definitely will be, a focal point over the counter, and definitely you'll see a lot of teams teasing them, whether it's down or up, getting, 12 points this week. It's very enamoring, but it's tough to play the Chiefs and the Niners on a back-to-back week. Keep that in mind, Ryan. Yeah. So, this might not be the best performance that the Bucs put out there, but they still are at home. And, a home underdog is very appealing, especially with teasers out there.
Yeah.
I wish it was less than 6. That would be a look at Tampa, but a look at the Niners. But it's so many points. You just mentioned it, Dwayne. It's even though road favorites have been spectacular for the most part here so far this year. Speaking of another road favorite, sorry, Dwayne, to do this to you, but we're going to go to Dallas.
Of course.
The Cowboys, who are without Dak Prescott, who are an absolute joke right now. Jerry Jones, Jerry Jones just might need to retire at this rate from his football duties.
He never will.
Oh, I know he won't, Dwayne. Trust me, I know you're stuck. You're stuck with him until he's not on the planet anymore. But here's what I'll say, Dwayne, and I mentioned this with Chris on Monday. When this was at 7.5, I thought this was a great take on Dallas. Now at 7, I still think it's a good take on Dallas because we're overrating Dak Prescott to Cooper Rush again. We did this a few years ago when, remember, week 2, Dak breaks his thumb or tears the ligament in the thumb, whatever he did opening night. Cincinnati's a huge favorite on the road against the Cowboys, and Cooper Rush and them and beat them outright. I'm not saying Dallas is going to win outright as a $3 dog, but Dwayne, this is a lot of points in a divisional game where, the Cowboys have been a mess, but the talent isn't that extreme towards Philadelphia.
I agree. They better step it up. Cooper Rush came in and he led them right down the field, if you noticed that last weekend as well. So, Cooper Rush is definitely very serviceable, and the talent level is still there. And, you're seeing getting a touchdown. When did you ever think in Jerry world you would see the Cowboys getting a touchdown? Granted, it's the Eagles, phenomenal team, phenomenal roster, but they're saying Hurts is a little banged up as well. The whole key is, though, how do you stop Saquon? I mean, they've been such a liability against the run, the Cowboy defense. And, until you have Lawrence and Parsons back, it's, healthy, it's going to be so very difficult. And Washington is playing at a top level. So Philadelphia has even more encouragement now because of the Jaden Daniels eruption and the way Washington has been playing. So, it's very hard. I like it better at 7.5. I'll be honest with you as well. And, I'm looking at this game right now, and the ticket count is 4-1 on the Eagles. They're pounding the Eagles. The money is there as well. Very difficult. I think it was more of the reaction on some sharps taking the 7.5 very early, but this game could easily go back to 7.5 here, Jeff. And, I want to put up an over-under. Is Jerry Jones going to outlive Dwayne Colucci right here? Because I might never see the Cowboys win again. I might never see the Cowboys win again because this man just refuses. And to go out there and blatantly lie, we don't have the money to go after a running back like Derrick Henry. Oh, but we'll sign Dalvin Cook, who has nothing left. Ezekiel Elliott, who has nothing left. Screwed Dowdell the other week. There was nothing wrong with Dowdell. You're not going to tell me he was sick. They just wanted to get Cook on the roster. And then you have the problems with Zeke, who I'm sure they were there the week before with the, not showing up and all this too, practices, team meetings. It's just in disarray right now. You have to revamp the whole system. McCarthy has to go. Defensive coordinator Zimmer's got to go. Let our great defensive coordinator walk in the offseason. It's just such a confusion with the Dallas Cowboys right now, and it's getting tiresome, guys. I'm waiting way too long. You're looking at 30 years since the last Super Bowl, and it's just a proud franchise like this does not operate the way they are currently operating. And now you're seeing it in the betting markets and on the the board where you're getting 7 points in Texas. It's just unfathomable from a Cowboy fan perspective, and it's very difficult to bet on them right now. Maybe could tease them up, Jeff. I think you'll see that 7.5 again. And Cooper Rush definitely is not that much of a downgrade from Dak Prescott, but still, it's just the surrounding team members and the way they're perceiving and the way the clubhouse is right now. They don't look like their old selves.
Well, Dwayne, now I do want to go to Sunday Night Football, another road favorite, the Detroit Lions in Houston taking on the Texans. We get a new purple uniform tonight for the Baltimore Ravens, and then we get a bright red uniform unveil for the Texans on Sunday Night Football. The Texans have lost 2 of their last 3, and the Lions are streaking, looking like one of, if not the best team in the NFC, if not one of the best teams in the NFL. What do you see in that one for Sunday Night Football?
I'll tell you the truth. I'll be honest with you, Ryan. I see the same. Unless Nico could suit up and he's coming off the IR, he didn't practice the last 2 days, so it looks doubtful. I mean, the happy feet, like I told you, Stroud he stands in the pocket. He got sacked 8 times by the Jet defense. I told you guys that was going to happen, that the Jet defense was going to look great because this kid does not know how to move around. And if he doesn't have those wide receiver weapons, the running game is not strong enough to beat the Lions. Lions look like a cinch in this spot until they get healthy or get another wide receiver option. I think Houston is way overrated right now, and it's starting to play out. It really is. You have to get a scheme where maybe this kid starts to roll out, find the running backs out of the backfield, utilize the tight ends a lot better. Otherwise, it's just going to be a whitewash. And the Lions love to run it up. I just hate that about them, that they love to rub it in your face, but that's old school smash mouth football. And they have to do it that way because of the coaching errors in the prior season where they gave away some games, especially that, championship where they actually could have went to the Super Bowl. They don't want that to happen again this year. And Jared Goff is just so super intelligent and efficient right now. It's amazing that he's not the front runner for the MVP. In my opinion, he is. I would take that 7-1 at other shops and shop around. Man, you might be able to get even more. This guy is super efficient. He has all his weapons in place. It's just a matter of that defense can slip up, and the Texans are perfectly capable, but they need that threat, with Collins, Diggs not there. Yeah, Nico has to suit up, and he will next week. I'm not so sure, though, about this week, Ryan. That's why you're seeing over a field goal in Houston, another Texas team as an underdog, and this is more because of injuries, because the Texans are a way better team than the Cowboys, but the offense just hasn't come to fruition without those 2 superstar wide receivers, and that puts a little more pressure on the running game and Mixon.
He's Dwayne Colucci. You find him up at the Rampart in Summerlin, NY Bookie Dwayne on the tweets. And you always see him with us on Thursday. DC, thanks as always. We'll see you again next week.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Ryan. I really appreciate you guys having me on, and come out to the Rampart and enjoy the football on our 55-foot video wall. Also, I'm giving you guys a little hint. We're going to have Tyson and Paul. If you guys want to swing down on the Friday night, we're going to be showing Tyson and Paul in the sports book. That's next Friday, not this Friday, though, guys.
Yeah, that's of course down in Texas, so you can see it just here in Vegas at the Rampart. Dwayne Colucci, thank you as always. We'll see you again next week. Ryan, before we get out of here, Bengals and Ravens, of course, 6-point favorites tonight with Baltimore. Anything else that before we get out of here?
Yeah, so Joe Burrow in his career against the Baltimore Ravens or versus John Harbaugh, 4-5 straight up. 3 of those 4 wins were not with Lamar Jackson at quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens. So that means with Lamar Jackson at quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens, Joe Burrow is 1-5 versus the Baltimore Ravens. So could be a tale of the sides, but if you're a Bengals fan, why not?
It's over. I'm just sticking with the over. We'll stay off the sides. That's really what we're looking at more so than anything here tonight. All right, tomorrow on this channel, 9 a.m., Kenny White gets you ready for the weekend ahead. And then at 2, of course, our as good of a show as there is in the whole market, maybe even the best show in this market, because our good friends Chris Andrews, Vinny Magliulo are here. The Bookie Show on Friday for 2 hours. Get you ready for both Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday action in college football and the NFL. Big thanks to our crew, Jerry, Vince, and Sean. Big thanks to Dwayne as well for always hopping on. We always love talking to our good friend DC. Thank you to Ryan. Good luck.
Thank you to Jeff. Good luck.
I don't need to be thanked. It's okay. It's okay. We'll see you all tomorrow morning. We'll see you all tomorrow afternoon. We're looking forward to it. Again, a lot of great football to be had this weekend. It starts with a dandy in Baltimore. We'll see you then here on Sports by the Book Football Frenzy.